Hi guys, this is Elisa with FusionDIY. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. It's great to have you here today. I'm actually working on 3 different projects today that I'm going to show you that turned out to be really nice. These were all pieces that I found at the thrift store, and I decided to repurpose them and give them a new life so that they didn't end up in a landfill. So join me as I make over these 3 projects and let me know which one of the 3 are your favorite. Enjoy the video. For project 1, I picked up this bunny at the thrift store and I didn't care for the finish. The bunny does have a couple of chips on it, but what I'm going to do with this bunny will camouflage all of that. So, it's going to look like it's a brand new bunny once it's done. So, Mr. Bunny, do you want a makeover? Okay, then let's get started. My go-to paint to create a faux concrete finish is Waverly Chalk Mineral Paint, and to it I added some baking soda. And here you can see that I am applying the paint and the baking soda mixture to this bunny. And this didn't take too many coats to cover this bunny. I think it took 2 coats, and then I think in some spots where it was really soiled, it took 3. And of course, I forgot to grab my Lazy Susan, so this just makes the project a whole lot easier when you start to paint. As you can turn it and spin it around, and you don't have to worry about handling the bunny too much. So once I was finished painting the bunny, I let it dry overnight. And then the following day, I came back and I gave this bunny some eyes. Now, I realized when I first did it that I forgot to show you guys how to do it. It's really, really simple. All I do is take some black paint and the end of a paintbrush, and I put the eyes where the eyes had been once before. And there I'm showing you my paintbrush. And here is this little cutie in my booth. For project 2, I picked up this tile at Goodwill, and it is definitely from Hobby Lobby because there is a sticker on the back that says Hobby Lobby, and I think it was originally $24. And so I am going to give it a makeover in the color Agave by the Waverly Agave, and it's such a pretty spring color. And so all I'm doing is, and here again, I forgot about my Lazy Susan, which makes the job so much easier. So now I'm going through it and making sure that I get into all of the corners and the crevices, and just really want to make sure that I cover all of that mustard yellow paint, which really I thought it was just a very outdated look. After I let the paint dry, I came back with some white wax, and I am going to apply this a little bit at a time, and then I'll take my rag and I am going to wipe back some of that white wax. And what you get is the high spots on the tile that are just very accented by that white wax. So I'll continue to do that until the whole project is done. After I went over it with the white wax, there was still a couple of spots that I felt needed to have a little bit more wax on them, so I went back and I filled in those areas again, and gave it just another treatment. And the nice thing about this is as I started to wipe back some of that wax, some of the mustard yellow came through, and it actually gave it a very distressed look to it. And I really liked how that looked. So once I finished, I actually set it up on its side so that I could see it from all angles. And then anything that looked like it just needed a little bit more wax, I went back over it and I just gave it another touch up with the white wax. And then for the most part, I called it done. I thought it turned out really pretty and I was happy with the result. And here it is in my booth. For the next project, I found this Lazy Susan at my local thrift store, and this was a big Lazy Susan. This is about 16.5 inches across, so it was very large, and I really liked how large it was. So I'm starting by cleaning it up and just getting all of the dust and the dirt and the oil from fingers off of it. So I started by painting the bottom of the Lazy Susan, and I apologize because I didn't turn my camera on right away, so you missed some of that. But, you know, once you've seen somebody paint something, it's like no big deal, right? So I'll go through the whole thing. This color that I'm using is actually a custom color that I mixed for a different project, and I had some paint left over. So I'm just trying to get rid of some of the paint in my stash. So I'm using this really pretty dark blue for the piece. Now I must have deleted me painting the top of it, but you could see that it required a second coat, so I gave it a second coat and then I let that dry. And actually I really had a tough time trying to figure out what I was going to put on here. I thought maybe I'd put a transfer. I really didn't know, and so I looked in my stash. I didn't want to have to buy more transfers, so I let it sit for about 2 weeks before I finally decided which way I was going to go with this piece. So once I decided what I wanted to do with it, and that was add decoupage paper to the top, I realized that I had to paint the top white because when you do that, the colors in your decoupage paper really stand out behind a white background. So I tried to lay down the decoupage paper over the blue, and it was just very dark and very dreary. So here I go, painting the top of the Lazy Susan with a coat of white paint from Rust-Oleum. It was the linen white paint, and I didn't really have to be too concerned about the quality of the job I was doing because it was going to be covered anyway with the decoupage paper. Once the paint dried, I turned it over onto the decoupage paper to get a better idea of how large I needed to cut the decoupage paper. Now you can see that I'm actually cutting it larger than what I needed it to be because there is a lip on the inside of the Lazy Susan on the top. And so I knew I needed some extra paper for that. Plus, I also wanted to have some that hung over a little bit so that I could very easily sand it off and give the piece a nice finished edge. So you guys who are DIYers know the old adage, measure twice, cut once. And that's what I did. I wanted to make sure that there was enough paper to do what I needed to do. So here I'm using my trusty Mod Podge, And I will take my brush and I will go over a little bit of a stripe, if I can get the jar open. There we go. And I'm going to lay down a little bit of the Mod Podge, and I will take my piece of decoupage paper and lay it down and press it into that lip right there that you can see, so that there is no chance that the paper will tear once the Mod Podge is laid down. Then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to go back to the edge just to make sure that I've got the edge laid down so that it does not slip when I try to continue to lay down the Mod Podge. I also took some cling wrap and I rolled it into a ball, and I then started to push out any of the creases from the paper. And this was the first time that I did this, and it actually worked really well. So I'm just going to continue to lay down the Mod Podge and then press down the decoupage paper. And I'll just continue that until I get to the very end, or the very bottom of the Lazy Susan. Once I was sure all of the edges were down and they were secure, I went over the decoupage paper, the entire piece, with another coat of Mod Podge, and I let that dry, and then I actually gave it a second coat of Mod Podge because I just wanted to make sure that if there was any drinks or anything put on this Lazy Susan, that the paper would not be damaged by any water that might have leaked, or in some cases a can or a bottle that might sweat in the summertime. I let it dry overnight, and then the following evening I came back and I sanded off the edge of the paper to give the Lazy Susan a very finished look. And you can see here that I am doing that. I started out with 150 grit sandpaper, but it really wasn't doing the trick. So here then I switched to, I believe, an 80 grit sandpaper, and it really did the job. And here it is in my booth. Didn't it turn out pretty? I love that decoupage paper. So which one of those was your favorite project? I have to say mine was probably the bunny. That bunny just had such a cute expression on his face, and I just loved being able to give him a makeover and give him a new life. So he's currently for sale in my booth, as are all three of these projects. My booth is located at the Pickers Junction, 220 North Main Street in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. So if you live in the western New Jersey or northeastern part of Pennsylvania, it's definitely worth it for you to make a trip down to the Pickers Junction. They have some amazing finds, and you'll find my booth there. So once again, thank you for joining me. I hope that you have a great week, and God bless you and your family. Oh, and by the way, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, which 98% of you have not, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and hit the notification bell so that each time I release another video, you'll be notified. Once again, thanks for joining me. Have an awesome week.